I mean, this idea of, slow Joe. Anyway, I shouldn't laugh about it because, anyway, Donald Trump, just look at us both, watch us, and determine whether or not you think I'm misleading anyone, not you personally, but the public. Look at me, judge me based on, I know what the job takes. I've sat for hundreds of hours in the Situation Room. For 8 years, I was vice president on every major decision. I know how difficult the job is. And one more thing I'll do. I'll take responsibility. I'll acknowledge my mistakes when I make them. And I'll level with the American people.
All right, guys, so that is Slow Joe, right? He says don't call him that. But that is him back doing September of 2020, before the election. Basically saying that he would take responsibility for his actions, okay? If he gets something wrong, he will own up to it and take responsibility, right? And let's be honest here. Under Joe Biden's presidency, basically everything has went wrong, okay? And he doesn't seem to be taking any responsibility for it, or is holding himself or anybody accountable for it. In fact, he's actually doing the exact opposite. As him and the Democrats, the new playbook is to play the blame game for all the failures of their administration, particularly when it comes to inflation and soaring gas prices, which right now is the hot button issue, okay? Americans are being destroyed in the wallet, right? Last year, during April 2021, the average inflation cost per household was roughly about $100, okay? And that is when the annual inflation rate first started accelerating. And now in January 2022, that number has hit $380 when inflation hit 7.5%, okay? Which again is historically high, right? The highest has been in 40 years, okay? Gas prices have been the highest they've been since 2008, right? So again, Americans are really losing money under Joe Biden, right? They're losing money under Joe Biden, okay? And apparently Joe Biden is not happy with taking the blame and taking responsibility for what is happening to the American people, as he actually went on this unhinged rant at a recent talk with Democrats, in which at one point he claimed that Democrat spending had absolutely nothing to do with inflation, okay, specifically the American Rescue Plan. And in fact, it was Putin. Putin is to blame for inflation and rising gas prices. Take a look.
The second big reason for inflation is Vladimir Putin. From the moment he put his over 150,000 troops on the Ukrainian border, the price of gasoline in January went up 75 cents. And Putin began amassing troops along the border, and guess what? The world took notice. And those of you who work in the business know that the market anticipated. Prices went up more. And then Putin invaded. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I love, the Republicans saying it's Biden's gas pipeline. Biden said he's going to stop the Keystone pipeline, and I did. And that's the reason prices went up. Folks, let's get something straight here. The Keystone pipeline was 2 years away and had been 2% finished. Give me a break. The rescue plan contributed to 0.3% of inflation. 0.3 inflation. They're the facts. Democrats didn't cause this problem. Vladimir Putin did. So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
All right, guys. So that is Joe Biden doing exactly what he said he wouldn't do before he got in office, which is mislead the American people. And that is exactly what is happening when the Democrats come out here and now blaming Vladimir Putin for higher gas prices and inflation. Okay, that's what they're doing. They're misleading the American people. They think that you're dumb. Okay, as if gas prices weren't rising before Ukraine and inflation wasn't accelerating before Ukraine. Both of those things were happening before Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine. Okay, and I don't really understand why Joe Biden does this. Like, why do you do this, right? Because you don't have to say this. Like, you don't have to come out here and play the American people like they're stupid and start saying, well, Putin's responsible for it. And you're not, right? You had nothing to do with it. It's just Putin. It's just this war. Forget about everything that you were experiencing before all this, right? It doesn't count, okay? It doesn't count, right? It wasn't there before this. Again, I hate this stuff, right? This is what politicians do, because it's one of those things that, honestly, it occurs on both sides, and it really annoys me how politicians don't want to use nuance, okay? Because you got one side of the aisle, particularly the Republicans, that are basically pretending that, hey, this war that's going on in Ukraine and Russia has nothing to do with disrupting the global energy market, and that any increase in gas prices from here on out is solely the responsibility of Joe Biden. That's not true, right? Oil is a global market, okay? People got to understand that. It's a global market, right? That's why when Biden was talking about how gas prices shot up, as soon as Russia started to invade Ukraine, well, that's because, again, oil is a market, and you have people who speculate in the market, right? And speculation could also drive up the price of gas in certain situations, okay? Especially when investors feel like there's scarcity, okay? That has an effect on gas prices as well, too. But then the Democrats, on the other hand, they say, oh, well, Putin is to blame for all of it, okay? And that's not true either, right? It's almost like, when it comes to politics, because people are trying to play the left and right game all the time, nuance is missed, and people simply don't become smarter from it. They become less educated from it, because it's much easier to go on TV and to get behind the camera and to give a simple explanation for why something is happening that is actually very, very, very complex and has a whole bunch of different factors that goes into it, like gas prices, right? In which, hey, yes, Biden definitely should take some blame for stifling America's energy production, right? And our ability to drill and to pump our own oil out of the ground. He definitely should take responsibility for that. But at the same time, people got to understand this is a global market, okay? It is a global market. America alone is not responsible for setting oil prices, okay? You have OPEC at play. You got OPEC Plus, which includes Russia. You got a whole bunch of different factors at play in regards to gas prices, okay? And I will say this as well, too, when it comes to Biden and gas prices and OPEC. He hasn't necessarily had a good relationship with OPEC. Saudi Arabia ain't picking up Biden's phone calls, okay? And Biden's ability to control gas prices, right, kind of relies on his relationship with OPEC, which is not good right now. So he should take some blame for that as well, too, because we can't even rely on our allies, our oil-producing allies, to help offset some of the price increases that we're going to see that is a result of what is going on in Ukraine and Russia. Now, when it comes to the American Rescue Plan and inflation, he's also misleading people there as well, too. Okay, because he's citing this report, which is the Fed report out of San Francisco, that basically said that the American Rescue Plan, at the very least in the short term, is fueling inflation. Now, he used that 0.3% number and tried to frame that as that, oh, that's so small, it's so tiny, when it's like, no. You got to understand. Inflation expectations are 2% every year. That's the expectations. So when you're talking about a 0.3% contribution or increase solely due to the American Rescue Plan, that's actually a big deal, right? That's actually a lot, okay? That's not a small number like Joe Biden's trying to make it out to be, okay? But I think that in the long term, once there's actually enough time for this stuff to be studied, and for us to get some thorough answers in terms of what's going on here, I think ultimately what we're going to find out is that really the American Rescue Plan probably did contribute to a whole lot of inflation going on, because we spent trillions of dollars and we put it into an economy that simply did not have the production to meet the demand that was created due to government spending, right? You created artificial demand, having people sit at home all day and buy stuff, because what else do they have to do, right? They don't have anything else to do except buy stuff all day, okay? They're going to spend the money, but they're not working, right? We're not producing. And when you're not producing enough to meet demand, what happens is that producers have to raise prices, okay? They got to raise prices. Low supply, high demand. You got to raise prices. And you also have to attract workers, which means you have to pay more to attract workers. That's why nowadays you see a whole lot of jobs that are not open late. Okay, they're not open late anymore. Restaurants are closing early because they simply don't have the workers. Nobody's working. So when nobody's working, guess what you got to do? You got to raise wages to attract workers. In order to raise wages, you got to raise prices. And again, this effect is still going on. It's still going on. It seems to me that we have not recovered from shutting down our economy and then putting trillions of dollars into an economy that was shut down. And now that we're trying to reopen, it seems that people from a behavioral standpoint simply still just don't want to work, even with these elevated wages. Again, you would be hard pressed to find a job that's actually really paying minimum wage anymore. You'd be very hard pressed to find a job paying minimum wage. Okay. So again, the issue here is that, in my opinion, some of the Democrat policies, specifically when we're talking about expanded unemployment, stimulus checks, the child tax credit, these policies incentivize people simply just not to work. And it became almost permanent, right? The behavioral effects became permanent to the point where, again, it has created a labor shortage that we are still experiencing, which in my opinion is, contributing to inflation, right? At least domestically. Now, again, nuance here. The supply chain crisis and this inflation problem is not just a problem in America. It's a global problem because we live in a globalized economy. Okay. But again, being the largest consumer economy in the world, the United States, obviously pumping trillions of dollars into an economy that consumes more than anybody else in the world is going to contribute to this crisis, right? Even if it's at a global scale, us consuming, right, as much as we consume without working, and with the world, our suppliers also not working as well too because of COVID. That definitely is contributing to inflation, and that is definitely the fault of the Democrats, right? It is definitely, that lays at the feet of Joe Biden passing that plan, because again, even Obama economists at that point was saying, hey, look, Democrats, you shouldn't do this. This has the ability to overheat the economy if you pass this $2 trillion stimulus. We don't need it. We need to chill. There were already expectations from analysts at the beginning of 2021 that the economy was going to be strong. We didn't need stimulus. Okay. We were going to have great growth. Okay. But the Democrats decided anyways, hey, we want to spend this money because we got to do our stimulus, right? The Republicans did theirs. Therefore, we got to do ours. And they did it anyways. And now we're paying the price for it. And now Joe Biden doesn't want to take responsibility for it. Okay? He wants to blame everybody else. It's Putin's fault. Everybody else's fault. Except his fault. This is the guy that claimed that I would take responsibility, unlike the last guy. Right? Again, it's amazing how this stuff works, right? When it comes to these politicians, how they don't really want to take responsibility for anything, and then they come out here and they spin these simplistic narratives to try to play off of people's ignorance. Like people are dumb. Like they don't realize that the things that the Democrats are blaming on Putin were problems before any of this stuff happened with Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Again, it really blows my mind, and it kind of pisses me off sometimes when politicians play these games. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.